Good evening. It's me again. And tonight I am reviewing Draft Day, which I just got done seeing. Usually I put in an intro beforehand, before I see the movie, but tonight I was unable to, because it was my original plan to see the movie Rio 2. However, this wonderful movie theater that I have in my town had some technical difficulties putting Rio 2 together tonight, and it couldn't happen. No idea what those technical difficulties were. Whatever. So I was mildly annoyed. I didn't have... And because I was getting right on my job at 8 o'clock and the movie started at 8, I therefore did not have enough time to do an intro as I usually do. However, before I saw the movie, I wrote down a few quick thoughts I had of expectations going into it. Draft Day, in case you're not completely aware, is about the NFL draft, and it stars Kevin Costner as the general manager of the Browns, and he's trying to make his perfect team. So yeah, the first thing I wrote down was we already have Moneyball. Why do we need this movie? Moneyball was a great movie. It really was. Brad Pitt and Jonah Hill were marvelous in that movie. The movie was well put together. It was exciting. It was everything you could hope to be. So why do we need a movie like Draft Day, unless it's just to make a movie like Moneyball, only about the NFL instead of the baseball league? And it just seemed like this movie was trying to be that. Kevin Costner. I'm going to be completely honest. I am not a big Kevin Costner fan. I think he's a very likable actor. I think he's a little lazy. And I'm if you're a big Kevin Costner fan, I'm really sorry. But I think he's lazy. I think he doesn't always give 100% into his roles. I wish this movie had starred Tommy Lee Jones. And 20 years ago, it probably would have, because Tommy Lee Jones, when that guy talks, everyone listens. He's got the energy, he's got the charisma, he's got the drive. When he speaks, you listen. And I would have much preferred Tommy Lee Jones be the head of this movie, but now he's too old, and I don't even know if he would have been. In any case, we got Kevin Costner, who I wasn't a big fan of going into it. That was one of my biggest, that and the fact that it looks like Moneyball. Kevin Costner, not really drawn to his movies. And the whole concept of the movie seemed, going into it, the concept didn't pull me. The whole concept of the movie kind of seemed silly, I guess you could say. Like I didn't get what the big deal was. They're having a draft, which I am not a football fan. I'm not a sports fan, but I'm definitely not a football fan, and I know practically nothing about the sport. And I know practically nothing about the draft. I have no idea what goes into that. So, and the trailers, which is the next bullet on here, the trailers made this look really corny. It made it look really pointless. So I didn't get why make this a movie. It seemed more like something you would put, based on the trailers, it looked more like a made-for-TV mini drama or something. Like, it didn't seem like it should be its own movie. I'm not entirely sure if this is based on a true story, because after seeing the movie, it didn't have that title card in there. And usually they do, and I can't remember from the trailers now that I think about it whether it did or not, whether they said that or not. I'm guessing it is. My assumption is that it's based on a true story. And I've got to the point where if I hear that a movie is based on a true story, I just kind of roll my eyes. It's become a gimmick. Having a movie that was based on a true story is the same as having a movie that has lots of effects in it, or having a movie that just stars Johnny Depp. I mean, that's pretty much what that has come to. You know, it's a gimmick now. It's just something to sell seats, and people usually buy into the true story one a little bit more because they think, oh, well, if it's true story, therefore the story must have been good enough to be put on screen. Therefore, it must be already a good story, a inspirational story, whatever. Snorri. It's a snorri. It's a snorri. It's a snoozeville snorefest. That's kind of what I think of it, actually. Yeah, like Blindside, which was based on a true story. I didn't care for that one. I really didn't. I didn't think the movie was necessary. I didn't think it warranted its own film. And before seeing this movie, like, I had checked this morning to see if I could see any reviews on it before I left, even though I was going to see, my original plan was to see Rio 2, but I usually just check all the upcoming movies anyway to see if there's any reviews up, and this one had nothing, so I had no idea what I was getting into before seeing this movie. And usually I see that as kind of a bad thing, like Sabotage didn't have any reviews up before it was released. Usually when directors don't screen their movies for critics before showing it, it usually ends up being panned. Most of the time, it's not a good movie. And those were my thoughts going into it. After seeing the movie, I was a little wrong. I liked Draft Day. I thought it was very solid. It's a good piece of entertainment. I have more things to praise about it than I do to criticize it for, to critique it for. It is a good movie. And I did check the reviews again after I got out. I checked Rotten Tomatoes, and it is starting to get a little bit more toward the mixed, kind of not so good range, with a lot of people saying, oh, it's a very paint by numbers kind of movie. And yeah, I can see that. Because again, like I said, about my thoughts going into it, it is a lot like Moneyball, where it's a guy trying to build his own team, and he wants the best team that he can get. Only this one is much more centered around the actual the one draft is the only real difference. Well, that and it's football. That's the only really big difference between this movie and Moneyball, and the fact that Moneyball was a much better film. So Draft Day, it's not great. I don't think it's going to be like an award-winning film. I don't think it'll end up making my list of my top 10 favorite movies of the year, not by a long shot. But it is good. I was interested for most of the movie. I wanted to know what happened. Some of that you do have to thank Kevin Costner for, because I don't think he was giving 100%, but he was putting enough into it that you cared about his character. Like, you cared whether or not he got his team together. It holds your attention. It makes you care. It makes you want to know what's going to happen at the end, and it keeps you guessing. That's one of the big strengths of the movie, is that it keeps you guessing throughout the whole thing, because they make you think that like a football player that they set up has this kind of value, and then they say, well, no, maybe he doesn't have this kind of value. Maybe he's not as good as we expect. Maybe he's not the kind of guy that we want. Maybe he doesn't have the right character, the right personality that we want for our team. And by keeping us guessing like that, the movie makes itself more engaging, because we're looking at it from Kevin Costner's point of view, so that we're kept guessing, and we're kept in the same investment that he would keep throughout the movie and throughout his draft day experience, and the whole movie takes place on draft day. It's like a 12-hour chunk of time that the filmmakers collapsed into, I guess, about 2 hours, maybe a little less than 2 hours. I guess like an hour and 40 minutes. So the movie's not that long, which is fortunate. I mean, the movie felt like it. That's something else. The movie felt very well paced. This is something that I have been starting to notice more and more when I watch movies, is how are they paced? Are they moving too fast? Are they moving too slow? Are they building the scenes correctly? Are they fleshing out the scenes as much as they should? A movie like Divergent doesn't do that. It just rushes from one event to the next event to the next event. This movie doesn't do that. Everything flows nice. It fleshes out the scenes. It develops a scene. Each scene has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it just flows very nicely. It has a couple interesting things where it does that I haven't seen before that I do want to bring up. Not because it's like really innovative. It's just interesting. It's a stylistic choice that makes the movie stand out a little bit, and I like it when a movie does that. I mean, we've all seen the editing choice where they'll have a split frame where you have one guy talking here and one guy talking here, and they're talking about the same thing. Well, what this movie does is it's almost like a Photoshop effect or like a 3D effect. They'll have like Kevin Costner here, but part of his body is moving into the other frame, so that it makes it seem like the two people who are talking on the phone are in the same room. And I like the effect that had. I did. I thought that added a lot. That added quite a bit to the way we were getting the story told to us. Because this movie is a lot of just talking, and unless you're Sidney Lumet, who directed 12 Angry Men, unless you're that, you have to try really, really hard to keep your audience engaged when your movie is nothing but talking. I mean, and I mean that in a very, because I don't like it when someone says that a movie is boring. I need some coffee. I don't like it when a person says a movie is boring, because to me that always means that there's another issue rather than just boring. Because what is boring? Is boring just nothing but a person talking the whole time? Or is boring something that's very predictable? Because to me, Transformers is, to use a word I don't like, a boring movie because I don't care. And it's nothing but action sequences that I don't even know the characters or the robots in there. And I don't care enough about them to really get involved in the story. When a movie is nothing but characters talking to one another, a director has a greater responsibility to make the audience interested in what the characters are talking about, interested in the way that they're saying it, interested in what happens next, and interested in the motivations that they're, and the motivations and the tactics that the actors use. I mean, it's very much an actor and director and editor responsibility to make everything flow and to make everything worth watching and worth being engaged in. And Draft Day did that. Draft Day, and the biggest thing that Draft Day did, which I liked, and there's a couple other things I want to get to, but there's not a whole lot to talk about in this movie because it's just a solid movie. It's just a good, solid story. But the biggest thing that Draft Day did that made me like it is that it put me into the world of football for a brief period of time. I'm a person who doesn't like football. I don't like football. I don't get involved in sports. I don't care about sports. Sports bore me. Sports are not interesting to me. And I can't even imagine being in that world. And something I've always admired about the movies is that the movies take us as human beings in the form that we are, and they put us into these other worlds. And it doesn't have to be Venus or Pandora or Tatooine. I'm not talking about those kinds of worlds even. I'm just talking about the world of sports, the world of FBI stories, the world of medicine, the world of a war. And this movie did that. It made me pumped about this sports. It made me interested and excited about what was happening. I was inside a little bit, just a little bit. I was cheering with the crazy sports fanatics that are in the bars in this scene. There's a scene in which, oh my god, now, what's his name? Chadwick Boseman. Oh my god, I hope I am getting his name right. I think his name is Chadwick Boseman. He played Jackie Robinson in the movie 42, which I haven't seen all the way through. But there's a scene in which his character finds out that he has made, he has been drafted by a team that he really wanted to be drafted by. And his character is so overcome with joy that there are tears streaming down his face. And I got really, really invested in him. And this is a character who didn't have a lot of screen time, whose story we didn't get a whole lot of. But his performance, this actor, who's a very good actor, and I actually hope he gets an Oscar nod for this role, even though it was as brief and as short as it was. I was so invested in his character for that few minutes. Sorry, that light went out. It always goes out. Oh well. And I like that this movie did that. It made me very, very pleased with it. So I've been praising this movie a lot, and I think it earns it, because this is a movie that is going to end up getting, I think, blown by the wayside a little bit. I don't think it's gonna make very much money at the box office, because the trailers made it look terrible. The trailers made it look so cheap and corny. But the movie didn't end up being like that. The movie ended up being very good. Maybe not very good, but it ended up being very solid. Very, very good piece of entertainment. But it's not a perfect movie, though. I mentioned that I noticed on the Rotten Tomatoes consensus that a lot of critics are having problems with it being very paint by numbers. And I do see that. I did get a sense of that when I was watching it. The performances were very good by Jennifer Garner has a good role. She always gives a good performance. Ellen Burstyn always gives a good performance, and she does in this movie. But there's nothing overly special about it. If you had to make a choice, like if this was 2 years ago and this movie came out at the same time as Moneyball, and you had a choice between seeing either this movie or Moneyball, see Moneyball. If you ever have a choice between seeing this movie and Moneyball, see Moneyball. Moneyball is a much better movie. It's pretty much the same kind of movie. And this movie is very predictable in the sense that you've seen this kind of Hollywood story before. And that is its biggest weakness, in that it's a Hollywood movie. And it's a very standard, nothing overly special about it kind of movie. Which isn't to say it's not good, because a movie can be very standard and be good. Yeah, a lot of people like the first Captain America movie, and I only mention this because I saw the sequel a couple days ago. And The Captain America movie was very standard, but it was good. A movie can do that. Just because we've seen movies like it before and we've seen better movies like it before doesn't mean it can't be good. Though it can make this movie seem more, I don't want to say seem more pointless, but seem less like we needed it. And that's a good distinction, because a good movie always makes us feel like we needed it after we've seen it. And that's those are the big highlights with Draft Day. The people I saw in the theater with, I couldn't tell how into this movie they were. One second. I'm sorry, I'm a little under the weather. I couldn't tell how into the movie they were. There was a couple behind me that was talking like almost the entire time, so I guess they didn't care. Although it seemed like they were talking about the movie. Maybe they were just kind of the chatty type. There was a group of jockey-looking guys in like the second row of the theater. One of which had his phone out most of the time. My guess is that they're the type of guys who don't go see a lot of movies, and they went to see this because it's about football. And my guess would be that if you're that type of person, you'll probably love this movie. Because it, like I said, it throws you into the world of football. It throws you into the world of sports in a good way. As if there's a bad way to do that. So if you're the type of person who really likes sports, see Draft Day. It's very solid. If you're uninitiated to see it, don't bother. You're not going to miss a whole lot. Excuse me. If you're the type of person who likes to see a lot of movies and who was turned off by the trailers for this movie, give it a chance, because I don't think the trailers did this movie justice at all. Hello, Light. Good to see you again. I don't think the trailers did this movie justice at all. It's much better than what the trailers say. It is better than what the Rotten Tomatoes scores give it. What the Rotten Tomatoes score gives it, in my opinion. Although, I mean, the scores for movies this early on are always going up and down way a lot, all the time. So maybe by the time I post this video, it already has a solid score on Rotten Tomatoes, but I kind of doubt it. Yeah, I say see Draft Day. It's fine. You're not going to miss anything if you don't see it. Like, if your theater is, like, if you're wondering if you should see this movie or Captain America 2, see Captain America 2. I haven't seen Oculus or Rio 2 yet, obviously. And those are the other two movies that are coming out this weekend I want to see. So I don't know if either one of those two movies will be more worth seeing than this one. My guess is that I'm kind of feeling the same way about all three of them, actually, that I'm not overly excited to see either one of them. So they all three might end up, I might have the same reaction as I did to this one. Either way, it's solid film, and that's all I gotta say about it. I'll see you next time.